This is A Line Around Your Thoughts, a podcast that centers on conversations with artists, writers, musicians, and creatives from around the Inland Northwest. I'm your host, E.J. Iannelli. Joining me today in the Rocart Media Studio is Jon Kuritz, a director and one of the co-founders of the video concert series Live from Somewhere, which is also, if I'm not mistaken, a nonprofit production house as well.
Correct.
So you've got both components.
Yeah.
And I would like to talk about that today, too.
All right.
So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, man. This is nice.
So Live from Somewhere got its start. It was one of these things that was kind of born out of the creative necessity that emerged during the pandemic. Mm-hmm. And so while the pandemic was bad in a lot of respects, it also resulted in a lot of people being both kind of entrepreneurial, but also kind of testing their creative mettle by launching series like this that filled a void that existed at the time, no?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was huge for us. You know, Ryan Stocks and I kind of co-founded it. Tyler Poole was an early co-founder as well. And I've shot music videos for 15 years now. So Ryan and I kind of worked together on his band, The Broken Thumbs. So we were plugged into the music scene pretty heavily. So when the pandemic hit, we were kind of just waiting and just kind of like gauging what we were going to do because he had a business. I was kind of like helping him try to keep that afloat, trying to do live streams because he had a sip and paint studio. So it was like one of those wine nights and come out and paint. He just signed a 5-year lease on this space.
Was that Pinot's Palette or a different one?
No, it was a sip and paint studio. And I forget where the original location was, but he had signed a lease in November of 2019 for like 5 years, working his way to open the doors. He didn't even get a class in there. He was scheduled to open like the week after everything shut down. Wow. So we were just trying to work together, figure out what we can do to kind of help that. And then those conversations ended up leading into, well, why don't we do this for music? Why don't we take local musicians who don't have a stage and put them somewhere? And we're not going to say where we are, and we're going to have a small crew, and it's going to be unique, undisclosed. We're going to do a different location every time. That way, because at the time it was frowned upon to get together. Yeah. So we wanted to kind of just all right, we did this thing, but it was a while ago. Now it's out and enjoy it, you know? So that was just kind of the whole premise of the show. So that, the name Live from Somewhere is literally just we're recording a live set from somewhere. And a lot of the locations are kind of obvious, but we try to let the performance and the visuals speak and complement the space and not advertise live at X. We're really leaning into that still, and I think that's kind of what makes us unique. And it's evolved quite a bit over the last 5 years, but I mean, that was kind of the origin of the whole thing.
Yeah, and talk about that first season, when you were you doing location scouting, for example, or did you have an extensive knowledge of some of these niches in Spokane where you could go and say, you know what, this is going to complement this band in particular?
Yeah, I think a lot of it was winging it. The first episode we did was with Exact Change of Matisse, and the original plan was to just go to the Parkade and ride the elevator up and just set up and shoot something real quick. But the doors were closed. They were doing some construction the day of. So we were like, okay, where else can we go? And then we just ended up in a dirt lot, which is now right by the walking bridge on Sprague. And then we just have an extensive network. Ryan was a bartender and in bands, and I had worked with a lot of, bars, different people, different bands. So we had that network of all right, whoever wants to do this can do this. And nobody was really doing anything. Businesses were closed. So it was the perfect time to just go and do it. We could hit up a band and be like, all right, next month, Hidden Mother is down to do a shoot and let us come in. Are you down? And they're like, yes. So it was just... that first year we did 16 episodes. Yeah. And thinking about that right now gives me anxiety. We shot 8 in the last year, and I'm like, I don't know more than that. That's crazy.
Well, there's always that surge, that kind of adrenaline surge that comes at the beginning, and then you realize, wow, this is something I got to maintain.
Yeah.
But when you were kind of identifying those initial 16 bands, who were you going to, whose Rolodex were you hitting up to make those connections?
I think a lot of them just happened naturally. I went to high school with Mike. I'd hit him up multiple times like, hey, we should do a music video. So at this time it was just, nobody was doing anything. And I was like, hey man, we got a couple cameras. Do you and Zach want to come out and just do this live thing? And they were like, yeah, sure. Cool. Let's do it. And it was literally like 2 cameras in a dirt lot with a laptop connected to an Astro van. And that's how we started. And I think in the OLs was, we met Zach. He was working at the Viking, I think, at the time. And he's like, oh, I got a band. We'd love to do that. And it was just like, people just saw it and wanted to be a part of it. And I think since then, it's kind of been that same element. We do reach out, Instagram, Facebook. We find bands that we like. And we're just like, hey, man, we'd love to have you on the show. If you guys are, especially this season, we've got Museum of Light that came in from Seattle, and then Hippie Death Cult that came in from Portland. It's just a lot of like networking and just seeing who's interested, and then like, okay, cool, what's your vibe, what kind of music, what's your sound, and then just thinking what kind of locations here might complement that, or even just be the exact opposite. It doesn't have to necessarily match. It could almost be the opposite. Like we put Got to, just this crazy, punk rock heavy, band into this guy's living room. And it was just, they had the inflatable tube man in the living room with like these crazy lights, and like there was a chicken involved at some point. It was crazy, but it just, a lot of it's happened pretty naturally.
Yeah, and I saw from that, during the early season, and I don't really know when it kind of hit my radar. It was at some point I was aware that this was going on and started tuning in, and then realized like, oh, this is a series. This is kind of like, this is going to have seasons and episodes within those seasons. But you had some of the folks who I would call like maybe the usual suspects, or the people who are, very established within the local scene at that time, and some now like TS The Solution, Snacks at Midnight, that sort of thing. And so you were doing a mix of, I think, fairly recognized and fairly familiar bands, and then some folks who it was like, oh, these people aren't even on my radar yet. So it was a good mix. Yeah,
and that was kind of our biggest thing. There's a lot of bands that people know about, but I think our scene here is a lot more diverse, and there's a lot more talent here than people realize. So even these bands like RCA and the Radicals, like since we've shot their episode, and when they performed at our Curators of Sound the first night, their band had completely switched. And when we shot them, it was like 8 months since they had started, but they were hungry and they were like, we're ready to go. And that was always our thing. Like there's a lot of artists that, kind of expect opportunities, and then there's artists that will like do whatever it takes to get an opportunity. And we try to like find those artists because they're going to show up, they're going to do the work, they're going to perform, because showing up on location and doing a full live set in a weird spot isn't the easiest. So, and if we try to do a full take, so it's all one take, they start, they finish, unless there's something in the early songs and we want to like completely start over, then we can like, we'll see how it works. But for the most part, the majority of our episodes have been shot one take, and we try to keep it that way and keep that real live performance feel. And it's challenging sometimes in certain locations. Like we put Ghost Heart in a concrete tunnel, and it was just awful for sound. And it was just like, getting Michael, and at the time before Michael came on, Tyler was doing our audio, and it was just, here you go, man. See what you can do. Because a lot of these locations were just like, this looks cool. It might be hard to record here, but that's fine. We try to just do cool things in cool spots. And I think if it doesn't sound the best because of that, that's something we're willing to do, because it's like, we are there, we are recording everything, and it's kind of what we strive to do, I guess.
Well, it's a mix of sort of the imperfection of the DIY ethic, but also a professional production quality. Because that's, when you talk about it being done in one take, well, that's how it feels a lot of the time. I would almost feel a little betrayed if I knew that there was kind of edits afterwards, or different takes, because it does really feel like, hey, we came together in this spot, we had this performance, and got some really cool angles. I mean, even the fact that you're a little meta about it, where you're filming the filming. I think of like the Smokes episode, for example, where it's very obvious that you're filming yourself filming, and and that's kind of like, we can
I know we can put together a very polished, very pretty, very great sounding thing if we want to. And I think there's a market for that. But I think what we're trying to do is just keep it real. And then, like show people a little bit behind the curtain, kind of break that fourth wall and bring people into like, oh, wow, there's like 5 camera people here and they're all operating. And okay, this guy's over there and there's a drone, or like, there's just, we try to break that so it creates this more engagement. And then, hopefully people resonate with that.
So you mentioned the concrete tunnel. Have there been kind of any mishaps or any things where you were like, we totally misjudged this? Like this was not the best pairing?
There's only been a couple episodes that we've shot that we haven't released. One was per the request of the artist, and then another was just our team was just kind of, it was one of the last ones we shot before we took our break. And it was just, we had a small crew and it wasn't to the level of quality that we wanted to put out. And so we were like, we will revisit. But at the time, we had, there's a couple instances where it was just like, all right, this might be tough. And then, we looking back, there's a couple episodes where the sound is just like, all right, this isn't the best, but it's also, we can't knock it because we were trying and we were doing it. So it's like, yeah, maybe the audio is not the best in this one. And maybe the visuals aren't the best, but it was like a moment in time. We brought together all these people. We're going to put it out, and then if people don't like it because of that, then that's understandable. But, we're just doing what we can over here. And especially that first year, I mean, we did 16. I was cutting 2 episodes a month for like 4 months. And it was just like, I think we did pretty good.
Yeah. And sometimes you're your own worst critic.
Right.
You're spotting imperfections that, the average viewer just isn't going to be attuned to. I mean, you're always going to have the fault finders, but yeah. You're probably identifying flaws in the audio that might not be apparent to everybody.
Yeah. And that was like a big thing too, of even that first year and a couple years after that, where, we got to remember a lot of these people are just watching on their phones or tablets or TVs. They don't have like a full surround sound that they're like really digging into like the audio quality. And, it's a lot of just like, oh, this is cool. And we don't, I think for what it is and what we were putting out, I think it was good for, the viewership. I think now it's nice because we are in a theater, so it's a little bit bigger of an opportunity for that sound to be at that level. So that's something we've really been able to hone in on with Michael Grimm coming on and kind of just being our audio engineer for everything. So he records everything, does all the mixing and mastering, and he's really got it to the point where, it took a few episode premieres at the Garland to just figure out their sound system. But now it's like once you go in there, it feels like you're at a movie. And I think that's been really cool.
Well, tell me about the premieres, because I've noticed that with a lot of the, that label is applied to a lot of the concerts that that you're doing now. So if you could talk about the shift from, being live from somewhere to moving to the Garland, for example, and then this whole nature of the premiere being part of it.
Yeah, so we were, doing it in the pandemic. It was very much like we're coming together, we're putting together this cool thing, and then I'll edit it, and then I schedule a YouTube post, and then 30 people are watching with us, and there's no community in that. It's just kind of like we're still sitting at home in our living rooms.
Yeah, it suited the time.
Absolutely, yeah. So I think even during in those times, we were like, all right, this is great, but I think we could bring people together. Like, how do we do that? And we tried it at the Magic Lantern a few times, and that just kind of faded a little bit. And we were kind of in a transition point with our team and just right before we took a break. So it was just a needed break. And then when we come back, the big thing for us was like, how do we keep what we're doing, modify and evolve that product, but then bring people together for it? So I reached out to the Garland Theater and just, we rented the theater for 8 days throughout the summer. And we were just like, hey, we just want to do premieres, take our YouTube, videos, and then we're just going to air them on the theater screen. And then we're going to do like a Q&A panel with the band. And then that way the band's there, they can sell their merch. It's a way for them to come out and connect with their fans. It's a way for fans of us to come meet these bands and hang out and just ask questions. So that was huge for us just this last year of like, we need to focus on community and like bringing people together while also doing the thing that we're good at. And that partnership really works well because they have helped us and been open to anything that we're trying to do. You know, we had RCA play some acoustic stuff in the parking lot before his premiere, and then Jada and Mondo the DJ just set up out and did like a little cypher in the parking lot for theirs. So it's just a cool way to bring people together around what we've been doing, but in a new way.
And you mentioned the break a couple times. And was that a burnout break? Was that a break that was necessitated by some other things?
I think it was a mixture of all that. I think it was for me personally, it was like a burnout. I know Ryan also kind of in a burnout mode. I had met my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, and it wasn't flowing in a way that it was like fun for me. And, you know, being the editor and like organizing a lot of this stuff, it's a lot on my plate to just kind of commit when it's not feeling good.
Yeah.
So Ryan got his job at Silverwood. So we took a year and a half, maybe. I got married. He got his career going. And then, you know, we were nominated for that Spokane Arts Award for the Imagination category. And we ended up winning that. So that was like a real boost of morale. And we're like, okay, cool. Let's do it. And then that just opened up a lot of doors and opportunities. And so we got together and we were just talking, you know, we're like, this could open up and become what we wanted it to be if we just do it. But we just have to commit now and like, let's go full speed. And, you know, the time was right. Everybody was feeling good about the project. So we planned out what we wanted it to look like. We brought Taylor Wardell with Popsicle Media House and Corner Booth, and he's doing our behind the scenes. He's helping with marketing and just bringing in someone specifically to shoot our behind the scenes content and just capture that element too has really helped us kind of get to where we've wanted to be. And then also including interviews in the episodes. So like we've had this format that we've wanted to execute, but it's just been not flowing and not working out. And once we brought him on, and then we had We Few with Daniel Schaefer, Sean Springer, you know, we met them at the Spokane Arts Awards. We met Daniel, and he was just like, hey, whatever you guys need, you know, we'd love to be a part of this and help you in any way we can. So we're on 7 of our 8 shoots, and that's 4 or 5 camera guys, gals, equipment, lighting, location assistants. Like they've been huge in just helping us execute. So I think we needed that break mentally to like figure out, do we want to keep doing this? Because it's like before that Arts Award, it was just kind of a lot of work going out, a lot of us putting everything into it with little return. You know, it wasn't really doing much. Yeah. So like, you know, once we got that award and these doors started opening, it really changed everything, and it's been crazy.
Yeah, I kind of want to talk about that and attach some numbers to it, because I don't think folks realize when they see this, you know, pretty polished final product, but then it also seems DIY. You know, it's like, oh, well, you know, yeah, it must have been, you know, from time of shooting to time of finished product, that must have been pretty streamlined and easy. I'd like to know just how many hours of work are going in for each individual on this, just, you know, rough ballpark.
For each individual crew member?
For each individual crew member to get yourself from, I mean, really from start to finish. I mean, because you've also got the organizing and the coordinating and the cat herding of, you know, setting and then getting on that location or getting set up at the Garland. And then, you know, you've got the shoot and then the editing and all the post and everything that's necessary. So rough hourly estimate.
Oof. Yeah, I mean, for myself and Ryan, and I'd say even Nick with ESCNW, Nick's been with us for basically since episode 1 or 2. Those are like the 3 core guys that have been really doing the pre-production work and artist communications and sending the emails and, you know, scouting locate, like all of that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's hours and hours and hours and hours. I mean, just to get, for instance, like the last episode we shot with Museum of Light, I think we reached out to them. Ryan reached out. November, maybe December last year.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was just like, hey, you guys are coming to do a show here at the Big Dipper in April. Do you guys want to try and do an episode? So that means they have to come in a day early, get up early, come shoot with us, wrap up, pack up, go load in at the Dipper and do a show that night. And that was what Hippie Death Cult did as well. But that's just 4 months of like reach out to shoot day. But then you have, okay, where do we want to shoot? And this is a lot of like group texts and like brainstorming. And I mean, it's got to be hundreds of hours, because then, you know, once we get all of this organized, because we're trying to do a whole season, and that way it's just consistent. So we batch shot everything. So from October, we started, I think October or November, and then we wrapped the season in April, but that was like a couple months after our last one. So we shot 8 episodes in 4 or 5 months, and then now I'm just editing 1 a month basically, and then we premiere it. So my work, I'm basically working a second full-time job.
Yeah.
And then, you know, Ryan, Nick, maybe part-time jobs as well. We have Taylor, who's really helping us with marketing. So he's tackled that and just kind of put together a couple campaigns for us. Like this is Kevin. We shot something like that with his buddy from work, Kevin Jung, I think his name is. But we had him come out, and he just was goofy in a full suit at the Garland, and then we took him to the Mac and had him look all sad because, you know, that was his role. And, you know, so Taylor's been helping us with marketing, and then, you know, Michael is probably, I'm not sure what his post-production workflow looks like, but just mastering and mixing all this audio from a roller rink or a record store. I mean, it's definitely probably not as streamlined as he'd like it to be. Yeah, I mean, it's got to be hundreds of hours.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
And in that first season, there wasn't a heck of a lot of remuneration, or was there? Like, I think that first season was mostly a labor of love.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It was basically, I mean, it's been a labor of love until basically this year, where we got a couple grants.
Mm-hmm. From who?
Saga. So we got the Spokane Arts grant.
And that was just recently.
Yeah, that was
2 months ago?
Yeah, April. So that's been huge. That's allowed us to kind of have some breathing room with our Garland premieres. And then also the Mac shows. So that's put a big chunk of that goes to, you know, paying the artists for that. And then we won the Tacky grant, which is like a tourism and culture grant.
Oh, wow.
For the Mac shows, because we have some out of town bands coming in and trying to promote tourism and things like that. So that's been huge. But, you know, up until then, you know, Nick has helped out with sponsorship dollars occasionally, and then Ethan from Dynamite Enterprises has really helped with merch at cost or free, just so we can get some stuff going. And he's been with us since day one too. So it's been definitely a labor of love until this last year or so.
Well, let's talk about Curators of Sound, because you know, this is a concert series that you're doing at the Northwest Museum of Arts and Culture, and you've had 2 shows so far. So what? One in June, one in July.
Correct. Yeah.
And this is a kind of a cross genre concert where you're just culling. I noticed that there are some names that you have. You know, that appeared on the standard Live from Somewhere series, and then were brought in for this. So yeah, talk about how those 2 concerts have gone, and some of the artists that you had involved. Because I saw, like, for example, T.S. The Solution was, I think, at the first one.
Yep. Yeah, so that's been something we've wanted to do for a long time too. You know, we try to stick to brand as much as we can. So with our episodic series, we try to just highlight anybody's who's hungry. So this season, you're going to see hip hop, you're going to see pop, you're going to see symphonic black metal, you're going to see, post rock. You know, it's all over the board. So for us, when we do live shows, the biggest thing is, if we're going to use a venue where we want to have a diverse lineup, at least that what we can control. The biggest thing since day one is, you know, we haven't been using venues. For us, I think it would have been pretty easy to get into a place like the Dipper or the Knit during COVID. You know, we had plenty of connections. I think that would have been, I think there's room for that. But I think we wanted to lean in to the pandemic and just kind of have this unique thing where we're going to do something different, even if we could do something fairly straightforward. So the lineups, we tried to pull from our series. So everybody that's on this concert series with the Mac has been or will be on the show. Like, we've shot every artist that's been on the lineup. With the exception, we had to bring in True Hoods from town. Hippie Death Cult had to back out of the August show for some medical stuff, but so we've subbed in True Hoods, which will probably be on season 5. So we try to pull from those who have been with us on our show, just to kind of like say thanks. You know, we know what your work ethic is. We know you're going to show up. You know, we have that experience with you, and then we can pay you. Like, when we do the show, like, nobody's getting paid. I'm not getting paid. The team's not getting paid. The band's not getting paid. It's just like, let's come and do something cool. Mm-hmm. So these shows, it's like, all right, now we can pay you guys, and you can come out and you get to play a museum. But, you know, I think the most diverse lineup was definitely our July show, where we started with Jacob Roundtree, and then we moved into Jada, which is like great hip hop artists here locally. And then from there, we went into Snacks at Midnight, and then we finished the night off with Age of Nephilim, which is this symphonic orchestral black metal band. And, you know, we put them in the middle because, we put Nothing Shameful on night 1, kind of third. We were like, all right, they can open it up. Fat Lady's going to close out and kill it. We already know that. So, you know, I remember talking to my wife at the first show and seeing, you know, Nothing Shameful go on. I'm like, all right, this is going to set the tone and see kind of like how the show's going to go and how the series might end up. And we were watching, there was a couple, you know, elderly ladies in the front row, and we were like, all right, let's keep an eye. And because it's, you know, we have kids dancing, and then we have elderly, you know, museum folks.
It's all ages and truly all ages.
Yeah. So we were sitting there, and I'm watching them, and I'm like, all right, let's see, you know, hopefully they stick around. But they loved it. Everybody stuck around, and then it was great. Fat Lady killed it. So that was really fun. And then just going into the July show, obviously that's Age of Nephilim is just a different level of metal. They've been around for 20 years. They're polished. They're going to nail the set, but it just, you know, we're going to gauge the museum audience and see how that goes. But I think it went really well. We had, they took the stage and we killed the house lights. So it was just a silhouette on this red backlit draped, you know, backdrop, because we brought in Jazz Boyd with Birds on the Coast. So he's doing our set design. So each set is going to be different. Stage setting is going to be different on each show, but we brought him on. So killing the house lights and then just having silhouettes. And I remember I had to go to the bathroom, so I'm looking, and they have this bird exhibit, and it's just bird sounds right inside the museum there. And I took a moment, and I just stood there because you felt the museum shaking, and then you could just hear the metal coming through the walls. But then you're looking around and you're hearing birds, and I'm like, okay, this is cool. But, you know, there was 20 people on the dance floor, and they closed it out, and people loved it, I think.
Well, you know, one of the reasons I'm sad to hear that Hippie Death Cult had to back out. I had seen that lineup change, and I was going to ask you about that. But I know that when Merritt Fisher and Rob Worstel were here, Rob was going on because he is a diehard Hippie Death Cult fan and a convert too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's been a fun journey to watch.
But from a kind of a marketing standpoint, I think the conventional wisdom for a lot of marketing folks is that you want to stick with a single genre. I mean, even when you look at, you know, national acts that come in, their supporting bands are pretty much always going to be not consistently, but generally are going to be in the same genre. They're going to be kind of in that same constellation. So the conventional wisdom would say, you know, you're going to want a lineup that's pretty consistent, and this is decidedly cross-genre. This is decidedly genre blending, and you're mixing hip-hop with symphonic black metal and that sort of thing. How is that working? You know, you said anecdotally, you know, you seem to be getting good feedback, like, you know, in terms of audience size and in terms of other, you know, whatever other metric you can use to assess, you know, how is cross-genre working?
Yeah. And I think, you know, this would be technically our third. August show will be the fourth, because we did a show at the Red Room right out of the pandemic. And we did the same kind of thing. And granted, it's coming out of the pandemic. I think we were the first show back at the Red Room, and we sold it out at capacity, which was probably 50 people at the time. But I think then we had Snacks at Midnight, The Groove Black, Exact Change of Matisse, and I want to say John Ward. So it was another mixed bill. But I think for us, we're trying to kind of break the conventional thing. You know, we want to be different, and that's kind of evident in the show that we put out, how it looks. You know, we definitely want to break the fourth wall, get to know the crew, see what we're doing, kind of bring you into it. And I think that just kind of lends itself, and like as a brand and what we're doing, lends itself to be more of a unique live approach. So we don't want to just do an all hip hop bill. Mm-hmm. Chameleon does that. The Nick can do that. Any other venue in town can do that. So beyond trying to do, you know, we'd like to do more unconventional locations with the mix bill, but trying to do a venue specific, we definitely want to bring in our style, our brand. Mm-hmm. And that to me is more diversity. And like the whole series and why we host it on our channel is because we want it to be a platform of discovery and not just here's an episode, go put it on your channel, your fans will see it, and maybe somebody on YouTube will stumble across it some other time. Yeah. You know, our goal is to be that, don't know what you want to call it, but almost as an artist itself, where like you come to live from somewhere because you know what you're going to get. And what you're going to get is like some killer bands and artists that you wouldn't see like on the same bill. And you know, you're going to see this cool episodic series, and you know that like once you watch this, okay, we've got 30 more that you can look at, and it's all same kind of vibe. So I think it fits our brand to do it like that. And you know, with the first show, I think we had 160, 170 people in the amphitheater, and I think the cap is 300.
Okay.
And then second show, we had 30 people less, so maybe 140-ish. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that's not bad for like a first of its kind, show.
Yeah, and also the outreach is important too, because one of the reasons the MAC is doing this, I mean, the MAC isn't known for being a music venue. Mm-hmm. And so, you have to get over that hurdle because people say, oh, the MAC is a museum for visual art. Mm-hmm. It's not a space for music. And obviously they're trying to challenge, that assumption. But also bring in new folks who aren't necessarily museum goers, because I think, relevancy is a word that comes up an awful lot. Mm-hmm. And, there are folks, not just at the MAC, but everywhere, who are saying, okay, what are some unconventional ways that we can use our venue to reach an audience beyond that built-in one? So you are fighting an uphill battle to some extent on both those fronts.
Yeah.
So the fact that you're getting those numbers is pretty good, and especially for folks coming to a genre blending show or a mixed bill, because I think of my playlist. And, you're going to see a preponderance of like 90s indie rock, but you're going to see a ton of jazz on there. You're going to see classical that spans from choral to symphonic to chamber music. Yeah. Zool Bailey, who kind of moves in the upper echelons of the classical world, he was in here just a few weeks ago.
Oh, cool.
Talking about his playlist. And he's like, I take a trip down memory lane with one-hit wonders from the 80s. And then if I just want to relax, I'm listening to Oscar Peterson and Ella Fitzgerald. So we generally, as humans, don't stick to a single mold. We have pretty eclectic tastes.
Right.
So, a concert that mirrors that.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a great point, because it's, you're not, I mean, I'm not, maybe some people are, but I don't think people listen to genre specific all the time only. I think that's a great point of, kind of how we're trying to do things, of just, we try to curate artists that we think will complement each other, even if it on paper makes no sense. And I think the July show really kind of put that, and I hope that's how it translated. Because, we've worked with Jacob Roundtree, indie acoustic, kind of folky vibes from Montana, which is going to flow, and then we'll build the energy into Jada, and she's going to kind of build off the R&B hip hop. And then we're going to go into Snacks at Midnight, who have like a fast-paced thing, but they also have some, build upon that. And then they finish their song with one of their new, super heavy, fast-paced songs and Rory's running around the amphitheater and going up in the crowd and just flipping the bird to, whatever. So we're getting there. And then by the time Age of Nephilim comes on, we're like, okay, this is we're jumping from like an 8 to 12, but I think people will get it. And even with the museum, I think they curate unique exhibits. So I don't think it's out of the ordinary to curate a unique lineup and just put that in there and be like, we're leaning into the museum aspect now to where, you're going to get a little bit of everything, but they're also talented. We could put them all on we could make all of them headliners. And that's kind of the point. It's like, we don't look at it as Age of Nephilim is necessarily headlining, even though they're in the headliner spot. They all got 40-minute sets. They all have the same time. They're all talented enough to be the headliner. So that's kind of the direction we want to take it. It's just like, all right, even the opener is a headliner, right? So we have these different genres, but these blend well in this order. And even, I think the artists understand that too, where they see the vision and they're like, all right, cool, this makes sense, So yeah, we just try to create some unique, live music.
Yeah. And the idea of discovery too. I mean, it fits well with the museum because you don't just go to exhibitions that you think you're going to like. You go to exhibitions to check them out, and some of them you're not going to like.
Exactly.
But putting these artists of different molds, kind of pairing them with one another allows you to kind of make those connections yourself and say, I'm totally into this. And again, to cite Rob, he's not necessarily a hippie death cult fan, but,
right.
It was through Curators of Sound that he came across them.
Yeah, well, it was nice because we had them come out to the first Garland premiere. We had the Mac team there because we were, announcing that back then in March, and Hippie Death Cult was the first.
And they kicked off this most recent season, no?
They did, yeah. So we had them, they drove up from Portland for the premiere. Rob and Merritt and them were there. And then, they just got to hang out and meet them. And, we had like a good panel discussion with those guys, and it was fun. So that kind of, and that lends it to it as well, where, you can come see Jada at the Mac, and you can see her at the Garland. You can see RCA at both. You can see Age of Nephilim at both. Like, Nothing Shameful, Museum of Light, they're all coming up. So, I mean, Jada and RCA already happened, but, we'll put those out on YouTube soon. But, yeah, I mean, you kind of have your choice of what your vibe is. If you want, full concert live music, we have that. If you want like this cool visual thing and panel discussion, we have that too. And it's just like a fun thing to do. Yeah.
And by the time this airs, Age of Nephilim will have already taken place.
So that's August 13th. So I assume that's last night.
Yeah. And then you've got two episodic series beyond that. You've got Nothing Shameful and Museum of Light that are coming up in consecutive months after that.
Correct.
And then you've also got this Curators of Sound that's going to be coming up in a week. So you've got True Hoods, and you said that they're replacing Hippie Death Cult. And then you got Hayes Noble, and you got Kung Fu Vinyl, who I think harkens back all the way to the first, is it the first season or the second season?
They were second season, I think. Second or third. Yeah, that second and third season we put out 16 in the first, and then 3 in the second, and 4 in the third. It's just, time, everybody goes back to work. But I think they were in the third. Yeah. And the Museum of Light will close out season 4.
So you'll be able to come to the Curators of Sound concert and then check them out, and then follow that about a month or so later with the premiere at the Garland.
Yeah, so that'll be October 8th, tentatively. That may change, but as of now, it's looking like October 8th.
And then, another thing that I wanted to touch on was this relationship that you've got with the Spokane Independent Metro Business Alliance, SIMBA. Yeah, it's not an acronym that necessarily rolls off the tongue. But you're fiscally sponsored by them, and you are kind of a nonprofit production house. Are you in partnership with them? How does that work?
So they are our fiscal sponsors. So we are a member with them, and we've got our nonprofit status. We just don't have our 501c3 yet. So they are our 501c3 fiscal sponsors.
So they just kind of hold the funds.
Yeah, so you can donate through them to us, and then they are the 501c3. So they provide you all the tax documents you need for that write-off. Until we can get our own 501c3 status, they've been great to work with.
And so do you have any professional relationship with them outside of that, or are they just kind of, holding the money when you need it?
They hold the money and then shoot it over once it clears. And then, Robin's been great. She kind of helped us get our nonprofit status going and walked us through that. And then my wife and I are actually going to be renting out our house here, and we talked to her last week, and she's going to help us get that rental going. So
cool.
It's a great asset for the town. I just shot her an email and I was like, hey, do you guys deal with home rental stuff? We kind of need help like navigating that. And she's like, yeah, sure, we can help you with that. So they're just a great business resource, and it's surprising how much they can handle, but yeah, it's great.
Oh, that's really cool. And in terms of, as we look ahead, so we've already kind of identified a Curators of Sound concert that's coming up and then 2 more premieres. What's going on beyond that? Like, do you have a vision or some sort of business plan or strategic plan for, the next couple of years of Live from Somewhere?
Yeah, we definitely want to expand a little bit. I think this year partnering with the MAC has been huge, and it gives us that legitimacy as like a business. That was kind of what was missing the first few years of like, okay, we are here and we can kind of ride with the bigger businesses, and we are equal there. So that's been huge. And I think, even with the Spokane Arts Award and the Saga, taking these, relationships and I guess accolades, if you will, and just kind of like grinding it out more and like using that to expand. We'd love to do some more live events, maybe like a pop-up festival. We'd love to do like a day festival, maybe like a bigger venue, like something unique but cool that we kind of bring in the same kind of diverse lineups and, bigger bands eventually. Far as episodic stuff, we're looking at season 5 artists, just tentatively kind of slowly booking that out. I got a lot of editing left to do for this season, so I'm totally cool with waiting a little bit. And then I think just kind of expanding on that, and then, even taking this Curators of Sound. There's a lot of things we wanted to do this year. They just weren't able to financially, time-wise, all these, different factors. But, we'd love to expand on Curators of Sound and create some more kind of elements to that, even if it's like a panel discussion with the band or, like a big LED wall with some, live digital art maybe, or just some kind of visual element to really bring to the artists that are on stage. Down the road, we'd love to do more community kind of outreach. I know we've talked about kind of, even if like I went to Skills Center when I was in high school, so just up here, bringing students out to a set and then like giving them some, hands-on experience on like a real project, I think might be cool. So there's just a lot of like ideas brewing. So once everything kind of settles down a little bit, that's kind of the direction we want to go. Stay with what we're doing, expand a little bit, grow upon what we have, and then just kind of keep venturing out.
Yeah, well, I think, from a high school or college student's standpoint, this is going to be a project that they want to work on a heck of a lot more than, something that to do with like broadcast or whatever.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
this would be the dream.
Right. And I mean, that was because I went there my second half of junior year, then all my senior year, and it was cool. Got to learn Adobe a little bit, but that was when it came on discs. So now it's all cloud-based stuff. But, that was huge for me, just having access to that kind of editing software, different cameras. But, it was a lot of broadcast kind of thing. But I think, if I had something like this when I was in high school, I'd be out there all the time. Yeah. Be really cool.
So we've looked ahead, we've looked at the short term and we've looked at the long term, and now we're going to depart from that completely with the lightning round. Are you prepped for this?
A little bit.
Okay,
yeah, I think.
Okay.
We'll see.
Well, yeah, that it's not going to be a diehard test of your knowledge, but we're just kind of feeling out some other areas.
Okay.
So the first is always an either. Well, I think we've had some exceptions, but the first is usually an either or. So the either or, the choice that you've got is, do you want more money for the work that you do or more days off?
Oof. That's a tough one.
Because one of the reasons that Ryan's not here is because he's just too busy and has no time to spare. So I guess it comes down, it's a money or time question.
Right. And I think the money probably lends itself to the time. So I think just more days off, man. Like right now I'm working full time and then juggling this. And I also have another business, Make Waves Media House, where I'm shooting other videos. So like right now my editing workload is like, I'm in the red. So trying to juggle that. My wedding anniversary is next week. My wife's birthday's coming up. If I had more time, that'd be great.
Yeah. And those deadlines start to, you know, even the coolest cucumber is going to start to hyperventilate a little bit.
Yeah, especially with this Garland stuff. You know, they're like, we need it a week before. And I'm like, oh, man, all right.
So the next question, you know, you've been working on cultivating a brand. I mean, ever since you launched, you've kind of wanted to establish the Live from Somewhere name. And actually, now that I think about it, the Dublin band Inhaler came out with Live from Somewhere, and I think that was a few years after you. So they kind of ganked it from you. But but you've been working on building this brand. So I'm curious if there's a brand that that you would kind of cite as a role model, or one, because and I can think of a few instances in my life where this has happened, a brand where you were loyal to and then you felt betrayed by them because they behaved in a way that kind of went against why you liked them in the first place.
That's tough. A brand. I mean, I think if we're looking local, I think a good reference is always the great P&W. It seems like they're putting out, you know, quality merch, and they're just kind of have their vision and they're doing it, and they're, you know, their advertising campaigns are always cool. So I like those guys. Who's betrayed? I don't know of anybody that's betrayed recently. I can't think of any betrayals.
No, well, that's good. Yeah. So it's better to kind of look to the positives than the negatives.
Fair.
So a household chore that you actually enjoy.
Ooh. I don't mind the dishes. I just don't want to do them all the time. Mowing the lawn is pretty... I like it.
Do you find you're zen while you're mowing the lawn or doing the dishes?
Yeah. I think the lawn, I'm like headphones in. I'm just kind of zoning out. But it's not a chore that I thoroughly enjoy. I've got seasonal allergies, so every time I mow that lawn, I'm like, oh man. Yeah. The lawn is probably the one I don't mind.
Okay, but you can't be too zen because then you start sneezing and stuff.
Yeah. It's a catch-22.
All right, so we've been talking a lot about. I mean, we've been talking about both video and music, but I'm curious about the music. The band that changed you. I want to know, you know, did you come across a band, maybe probably in those formative teenage years, where you were like, this is where I'm all in?
I think Incubus was a big one. I think Incubus, In Flames, Architects, Parkway Drive, and it all just comes at a time, you know. Incubus, I was like 12, 13, just making skate videos. These guys are coming out. It was like cool. They blew up, you know. Beyond that, you know, you're going through some stuff, and, you know, In Flames or Architects, and you're a little bit angry and angsty, and then you're like, all right, cool, I can get down with this. And then their lyrics are heavy. So definitely, I think those are my top 4, top 5.
So it's the music, the right music finding you at the right time.
Yeah. Because you can hear a song and then it won't connect with you, and maybe you give it a second chance and you're going through something a little bit differently. So you're like, okay, now this hits. Now I get it. And even if that's the melody, if that's the lyrical content, if that's the breakdown, whatever, you know, whatever it is, sometimes it hits differently at a different time. And then you're like, oh, okay, yeah, now I get it.
Well, hopefully somebody's going to come across Live from Somewhere, and whatever the band du jour is that you've got out, you know, that's gonna resonate with them.
Yeah, we hope. You know, we want to be, you know, we want to inspire if we can. We want people to, you know, feel good watching what we're doing, you know, and you can do it too. Just do it. You know, that's all we've been doing, you know. Just got to try it, do it, stay doing it.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for coming in today and chatting about all of this. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it, man.